Hey Matthew,
What's up?
you mind if we talk about some climate change today?
No, let's do it.
All right. Well, you're from Hilton Head Island, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In your own eyes, just be honest. Have you noticed sea level rise in the beach of Hilton Head Island?
I personally haven't. The only thing I guess related to sea level rise would be affecting the beaches was when Hurricane Matthew hit in 2016. I just remember we had, not only did the oceans, they completely just, the flash flooding and the storm surge just completely engulfed the island, but even just, we had a pond in our backyard and it just rose, I forget how many feet, and just went into our water. So not exactly climate change related, but it might have something to do with it, but that's the only instance I've seen.
This might sound silly, but have you noticed the weather getting hotter, colder? There's different rumors about what people think. Based on, I'm not asking you facts or anything, what is your opinion? Have you noticed it getting any warmer, staying the same?
I would definitely say getting warmer. I mean, for instance, we're here in Columbia, and for Parents Weekend, I think it was the first weekend of October, and my parents came up for the Missouri game, and it was 93 or something, and it's October. And I remember having nice 67 degree weather before in late September, so I definitely have noticed it just getting hotter and hotter.
Okay. Do you personally think that climate change in the future is going to affect us a great deal for a little bit? It's rumored and it's been proven to be, change at least a little. Do you think it will affect us in the near future?
I wouldn't say in the near future. I would say based on just the stuff I've learned and the stuff I've heard and the stuff we've learned in class, that I think maybe in the 10 to 15 year range. I remember we looked at a map of Charleston, and it showed that huge chunks and sections of that would be just completely submerged by water, which is crazy for me because obviously being from Hilton Head Island, Charleston's a couple hours down the road, and just sections of that city, the harbor, houses, historical monuments, all that, just being completely gone. And like I said, I'm not an expert at all, so I really don't know. I would honestly say my guess maybe 10 to 15 years we're going to actually start seeing that impact.
Do you think it's going to affect, us more who kind of are privileged to live in America? Or do you think it's going to really, do you think it's going to affect us a little bit and devastate the people in more third world kind of impoverished countries? Do you think it's going to be about the same?
I think it's definitely going to be third world impoverished countries a little bit more. I know I give a lot of examples from class, but like I said again, I can't remember the exact country, and this wasn't even from this class, this was from Environment 101 last semester. It was in our lab, and my teacher was going through a slideshow, and, he showed some country, I think it's near India, or somewhere in that area of the world, and I think in 10 to 20, 15 to 20 years, somewhere in that range, the whole thing is literally going to be completely underwater. And when that starts to happen, they don't have the resources, the money, and there's going to be millions and millions of refugees. Here in America, we're much more privileged, have a lot more money, so I don't really know how those third world countries are going to be able to survive that impact.
I got you. So what do you think is the main cause for, climate change? Again, I don't, not some doctor or anything, I don't expect perfection. Do you think it's, just something that was, always bound to happen? Do you think it's from the way we as humans are treating the environment? What are your opinions?
I think it's definitely human related. We had a question in class, last class or 2 classes ago, and it was a anonymous thing. It was, do you think that it's more human caused or just nature? And I think it was 70-some percent or 80-some percent put human caused, because you think about the factories, the production, just the elements and chemicals that we're putting into the air obviously are affecting the sun, and instead of it the way that the world was meant to function in the sunlight, it's now just going into the oceans, it's affecting sea level rise and all kinds of things. So I think definitely we have to cut down with just our emissions of gases and toxins, and like we talked about, I don't really know the exact words for this, but I think that definitely we need to be more environmentally sustainable.
And how can we do that? How can we, as individuals, everybody says, oh, you can make a change, but people say, oh, I'm just one person, I can't, really make an impact. What would be your advice to people? How can we as individuals, help prevent this as much as we can?
I think that it starts just on a small level. For instance, I will admit I wasn't very environmentally aware at all coming into college. And especially after taking Environment 101 last semester, I started to think about things a little more, whether it was something like at Russell House, the little plastic cups you get. I used to be just lazy and chuck them in the trash can. But now I actually make a conscious effort to put those in recycling, or when I'm taking trash. And obviously this is really small levels, and a little recycling isn't going to be a big impact like the oceans and sea level rising. But I think that it starts with the thought and the conscious effort to be more sustainable and not just be like, oh, it's fine. Like, I can put the recycling in this or the trash in recycling. So,
Which do you think is more dangerous, the sea level rise or the potential of, the temperature just getting hotter and hotter?
I would say the sea level rise. I mean, the temperature obviously getting hotter affects a lot of things like coral bleaching and things of the ocean, things on the land. But you talk about sea level rise, you talk about people's properties, families, lives. I mean, just like quality of life, all that stuff. Whether it's Charleston or third world country, we were talking about near India, just millions of people getting displaced or killed or just having nowhere to go. And then you think about, well, where does it stop? Does sea level rise just keep going and going? So I think that definitely right now the sea level rise is way more concerning than just the temperature.
Before this class, did you ever think about climate change, or did you kind of think it was just some, BS thing that people make out? Like, what did you think before, becoming more knowledgeable about this topic?
I will admit, I honestly thought climate change was just a bunch of BS. I thought that called people like tree huggers and just a bunch of greenies and their electric cars and their like environment sustainability. I thought it was a joke, but for instance, that coral bleaching documentary.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did that kind of change your after saying that?
That just absolutely hit me. I mean, the kid who was really passionate about coral, when he showed like the before and after, the manual footage they did, it just looked like you could tell it was an actual life form just dying, like the beautiful way that it was created and just falling to it looked just like rotten rock. It definitely, environment definitely started, I think, taking this class, because obviously living near the ocean, living in a beautiful island, the environment and animals and all that related stuff is just all around me, and I never really took the time to appreciate it.
Do you think that living at the ocean makes you think about more than somebody who lives inland, or is it not really?
Definitely, because when you talk about things like sea level rise, and for instance, like when the Professor Jones was talking about the Charleston sea level rise, I mean, that worries me because Hilton Head is similar to Charleston. It's a low country area, so that could be my mom, my dad, my family. That could be like our house going underwater. So I definitely think being surrounded by water, and whether it's sea level rise or temperatures or just being on an island, definitely I think gives me a different perspective than people just stuck on the mainland.
Do you have any last minute remarks or comments?
I mean, I've really enjoyed being in this class, whether it's the documentaries or just some of the stuff we learned. It really has been very eye-opening and definitely changed my perspective.
About climate change? Okay, well, thank you, Matthew.